There is every reason to believe that players have started leaving Hearthstone en masse, and this is far more serious than the long-standing, loudly voiced dissatisfaction. Player interest and engagement are visibly declining, a direct consequence of a chain of destructive leadership decisions and the passivity of the development team. Today, my math partners and I have gathered a mountain of data signaling major problems, and we'll try to determine just how bad the situation really is.
Time to rock and roll!
Hello my friends. My name is Bot Mathematician and this is Holomancer.
Also, Chief Investigative Reporter Dora joined us this evening.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop. The dark streak for Hearthstone is directly associated by players with the arrival of the new director, Tyler Bielman.
But in our opinion, most of his actions were inevitable, consequences of ambitious but failed decisions made in the past.
Starting at the end of 2023, Hearthstone entered an extremely painful transition. Abandoning the concept of being a platform for card games, removing modes, optimizing at the cost of tradition. Players took all of this harshly. Then began a gradual accumulation of problems in the gameplay environment, snowballing throughout the year. At every stage over the last 2 years, it felt like a local catastrophe was unfolding. And yet, all the indirect data available to us showed nothing fundamentally wrong. Despite growing dissatisfaction, player activity remained high. At least, we couldn't detect any major drop. Still, we promised our audience we'd release the data the moment we saw even the slightest sign of declining player activity.
That moment came not long ago. Many general metrics began to deteriorate dramatically. Let's start with something simple. Player interest in the recent Summer Championship turned out to be historically low, according to Sully Gnome. Despite Twitch drops and an in-game announcement, the overall viewership was catastrophically low. At its peak, Hearthstone content drew only 23,000 viewers. Average concurrent viewership was around 10,000. For comparison, a similar tournament in June had double the viewers. In just a few months, interest in Standard fell sharply.
And honestly, that's not so surprising. Look at our chart of viewer satisfaction with the meta. The spring tournament happened right after a mini set and balance patch, which stabilized the competitive environment.
Player satisfaction was relatively high, though gradually declining, up until the release of the Lost City of Ngoro. What followed the expansion can only be described as prolonged stagnation. With each patch, the dire situation got a little worse. We haven't seen such a long critical period in years.
But guys, how do we explain the still fairly high player activity then? Here's a chart of the total number of Legend players across all modes. The sharp spike in the middle of the graph isn't reliable, since it coincided with Chinese players invading other regional servers and waves of bots. Once Hearthstone returned to China, the numbers normalized. Notice how the current number of Legend players isn't much different from the post-Death Knight release period or the post-release Days of Titans. In fact, it's significantly higher than during the post-mini-set period of Castle Nathria, when official data first began to be published. Does this mean players are still active despite record-low satisfaction levels?
Dora, I'm afraid that data may be too optimistic. At the start of September, I reached Legend in the fastest, most effortless way I've ever experienced. It was the dullest Legend climb in my 11 years of playing. It feels like a large number of skilled players simply disappeared. Or maybe I just got abnormally lucky with my opponents.
It's possible that reduced competition naturally inflates the number of Legend players on the ladder. But that's speculation. The real indicator will be the total number of Legend players in September. That number could end up lower, since there are already signs that activity dropped significantly at the beginning of the month. But I want you to notice one more striking thing. Look at how sharply the pool of top Battlegrounds players has shrunk. On the chart, this is shown by the burgundy line. Last season, only about 22,000 players managed to reach 8,000 rating points to get on the leaderboard, including Duos players. That's fewer top Battlegrounds players worldwide than there are standard Legend players on European servers. That's a shock. We've never seen a metric this abnormally low before.
Moreover, the Firestone Deck Tracker occasionally publishes data on how its users spend their time. The last report came out in early June, and as you can see, Battlegrounds' popularity among tracker users was, to put it mildly, unimpressive. The admins warned the numbers might be distorted by bugs, but the real question is, how distorted? Fresh data would be very telling, because it looks like Battlegrounds is in a slump, much like Standard. The auto-battler hasn't received any fundamentally new content in over a year. Developers reshuffle old support mechanics and rotate minion pools, but that doesn't create a truly fresh gameplay experience. It's fair to say the mode has at least stalled in its development, and that is extremely strange.
What's more, last Battlegrounds season was so uninteresting to me that I only finished my Tavern Pass in the very last week before the new season launched. That has never happened to me before.
Switching back to traditional Hearthstone, we have several other interesting data sources. We regularly monitor stats on HS Guru, which publishes data partly based on the Firestone deck tracker. We track the number of matches played with the top 200 most popular decks, giving us a sense of player activity across different periods. For example, after the release of the Heroes of StarCraft mini-set in late January, we recorded 450,000 matches. At the end of March, after rotation, 500,000 matches were played in a single day using only the most popular builds. During the Embers of the World Tree mini-set release, activity dropped to 330,000 matches. That's normal, as activity usually declines gradually during an expansion cycle. Players greeted the Lost City of Ngoro expansion with strong enthusiasm, 400,000 matches on release day. But activity dropped off sharply right after. The mini-set release failed to create any spike in interest. Just 10 days later, the average daily match count fell to 120,000. In 9 months of tracking with this method, we hadn't seen a number this low. Normally, activity dips steeply a few days before a new expansion arrives, but this time the game was already at rock bottom with more than a month to go before the next expansion.
Another piece of evidence comes from HS Replay, which publishes the number of tracked matches per week in real time. I regularly jot down these numbers in my notebook. The peak I recorded came on October 21, 2024, right after Hearthstone returned to China, when players flooded the deck trackers. But those numbers quickly fell back to a sort of baseline. After the release of StarCraft mini-set, peak weekly activity reached just under 11 million matches. In later cycles, the peaks looked similar, around 13 million in post-release weeks, then dropping to 10 million during content droughts. The Lost City of Ngoro drew fewer players during its release week, and afterward activity fell sharply. The mini-set release didn't boost numbers, it accelerated the decline. Right now, players are logging just over 8 million matches per week on HS Replay. We haven't seen a number this low since the game's return to China. It's a new negative record. The number of contributors has dropped from a peak of 550,000 at the start of the year to 370,000 today, and it's shrinking by 2,000 more every single day.
So let's sum this up. According to HS Guru, player activity has decreased fourfold since the beginning of the year, a 76% drop. Among HS Replay users, activity has fallen by 39%, or 1.5 times.
The signs of declining activity among the most engaged audience are clear, and Blizzard's own actions indirectly confirm it. What's the most absurd thing leadership could do when players already find the game uninteresting? If your answer is, force them to play far longer than they want to, you're absolutely right. In the face of falling interest, the team introduced an event with an unprecedented amount of grind required to earn rewards. Weekly quests like play 850 cards or summon or destroy 2,000 minions, and daily quests like take 300 turns or summon 200 minions.
Instead of admitting their failure and offering quests that would let players spend minimal time in a game they're already unhappy with, the team decided to force players to suffer through it. Management is stepping on the exact same rake as last year, when they triggered the weekly quest drama. If their goal was to create extra incentives for heavy players, this is the dumbest possible way to do it. A method that already proved unsustainable. I don't believe this is a mistake. It looks intentional.
The only logical explanation for this absurd decision is the desire to artificially inflate activity numbers for the servers, and for Hearthstone's internal stats.
And yes, it actually works. We saw it firsthand. In the first days after the event launched, the number of contributors on HS Replay continued to decline, while the number of matches rose. A similar trend was visible on HS Guru. It's worth noting, though, that this didn't lead to a dramatic surge. These attempts may well be a true reflection of player activity problems. After a wave of player complaints, quest requirements were reduced, sometimes by a factor of 2, 4, or even 10. Utter madness.
Don't get us wrong. Personally, I don't think we as players even have the right to complain here. Rewards have become far more generous than ever before, and events are more frequent this expansion cycle. There's nothing wrong with requiring extra effort for some rewards. In this specific case, the problem lies entirely in execution. and the execution is flat out stupid. It's one of the worst approaches imaginable. And given the kind of decisions being made, I'm more worried than ever about the future of the game.
It's worth remembering that this exact tactic has been tried before, during some of Hearthstone's darkest times, and it didn't deliver meaningful results then either. I'm talking about the special event The Battle for Alterac Valley, where players were asked to choose a faction and earn honor points for exclusive rewards.
The publication of official results gave us room to speculate, and we estimated that the average number of daily matches during the event was around 5 million. That's an extremely low figure, especially given the artificial incentives and the fact that honor could be earned across all traditional modes and formats. This weak performance is indirectly confirmed by our own viewer activity data based on rewards track levels. According to our calculations, United in Stormwind and Fractured in Alterac Valley were the worst expansions of the last 5 years, as our audience spent record low amounts of time in the game each day. By the end of the 2021 game year, player activity was actually negative, meaning many players at some point stopped even logging in to complete their daily and weekly quests.
I'm afraid 2025 could repeat the fate of 2021. I'd go as far as to suggest that a true catastrophe could occur if the next expansion fails. We might see the same trajectory, and that's a highly probable scenario. The situation is made worse by the fact that players and the dev team hold completely opposite views of what a healthy game environment looks like. A major ideological conflict is brewing, one that will be hard to prevent, and the latest balance patch and half-hearted attempt at dialogue make that painfully clear.
Many players naively believe that a radical transformation of Standard is just about to begin, and that reducing the power level of new expansion cards is part of some broader vision.
Some expect sweeping nerfs, others buffs to quest strategies, but instead we got another minor patch buffing unplayable mini-set cards. In fact, the devs have essentially confirmed what Dora has been suggesting for weeks. The team sees the current meta as satisfactory and has no intention of making drastic changes. This is, in their eyes, a healthy and interesting environment.
Thank you, Holomancer. Finally, someone appreciates my intellect. Personally, I'm glad quest strategies weren't buffed. We've had enough toxicity from Quest Warlock.
Yeah.
But I am worried that developers genuinely consider this meta engaging. From my perspective, it's one of the worst designs we've seen in years. So what are the chances that the next expansion will magically fix things, change design philosophy, and satisfy players at the same time? To me, Hearthstone feels dangerously close to a zugzwang, where every next move inevitably makes the situation worse.
Unfortunately, none of this is surprising. It's the most predictable outcome possible. When you strip away other ways to play and leave players with nothing but Standard, while at the same time making it obvious that your top priority is monetization, not creating engaging gameplay, it's only a matter of time before everything collapses.
And when it does, you won't have a safety net to offer even part of your audience. There are no longer any alternatives in the game to distract players from the current problems. The removal of modes and abandonment of formats was a ticking time bomb, and it looks like it's finally going off. Every aspect has gone off the rails, plunging the game into a new crisis, all against a backdrop of overwhelmingly negative sentiment toward both leadership and the game itself.
What shocks us isn't Standard's decline. After 11 years, it's impossible to keep the mode fresh forever, and major mistakes are an inevitable part of any live service game. What shocks us is the total absence of strategic vision from leadership, and the painfully stupid ways they're trying to solve the current problems.
Hearthstone has fallen, but it will almost certainly rise again. Best case after the next expansion, worst case after rotation.
The problem is, with every fall, it becomes harder for the game to climb back up. Leadership and developers will have to make a serious effort to bring players back.
Dear friends, tell us, are you playing less since the release of the Lost City of Ngoro, or has your activity remained the same? Let us know your thoughts below and join the polls in your community tab. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to support our content and stay updated.
Traditionally, we want to express our boundless gratitude to our sponsors.
Dear friends, your help is invaluable. We will be grateful for any support.
Okay, that's all for today. Thank you for spending this time with us. We really hope that we will have the opportunity to get in touch in the next video.
Take care of yourself.
And never give up.
Job's done.